Greetings, YouTube. There was a time that the United States Army used the M14 as their service rifle. I actually have some rather fond memories of the M14. I think it's a pretty solid foundation for a battle rifle. Um, but that's what it is. It's a weapon designed for war. Even though I respect it, I don't own one, and I don't want to own one. I have respect for the A-10 Thunderbird. I don't want to own one. I just have a lot of respect for it. Um, and someone decided that that he thought he had a better idea for a weapon other than the M14. So this guy, his name was Stoner, came up with the design which was known as the AR-15. And the AR-15 went through military trials because the military said we're looking for a new battle rifle, and it opened up their, competition, and they do that. And Stoner got the contract, and the AR-15 became the M16, and it's derivative since then. And the M16 is still being considered a solid, battle rifle up to this day. But the AR-15 was always designed as a weapon of war. It was never designed as a weapon for plinking, or for hunting, or for home defense. It was always designed from the get-go, from square one, as a military weapon of war. It is, however, very versatile and very easy to modify. There are lots of options for AR-15s, and essentially the AR-15 is a Lego set. You can click and push and pull and snap things onto it and have it do all kinds of different things. And there's a certain set of people, mostly white guys, that find that very attractive, and I can understand that mindset. All right? I love the idea of being able to take something, modifying it, and turning it into something else. It's my hobby. I make weapons as a hobby. Just this morning, I made a really cool mace out of a plumbing fitting. But I don't need a weapon of war. And I don't feel the need to get a weapon of war and then play Legos with it until it's the perfect rendition of a weapon of war that I think it should be. I'm a civilian. I don't need a weapon of war. And I don't think any civilian needs a weapon of war. It is one of the very reasonable limitations I feel that we should be putting upon firearm ownership in America. I feel that we should ban all semi-automatic firearms, and I describe it that way to be very specific, so I'm not using the squishy terms like assault weapon, which is a viable description, but of a fairly narrow class of weapons. Too many people use the word assault weapon to be whatever they want it to be, much like the way the GOP and the Red Caps use the word woke to mean anything I don't like. It's like all semi-automatic pistols are not Glocks. All revolvers are not, Colt 40. I mean, aren't Smith and Wesson 38s. It's a class of firearm. I understand that. But the AR-15 was designed as a weapon of war, and I don't believe that anyone who is a civilian needs one. And I believe that we would be far better off if we didn't have them. And when the admittedly squishily named assault weapon ban was lifted, mass shootings went up by 43%. That should be all the proof you need, but of course it isn't. Now remember that when our First Amendment right was ratified into law, and the Second Amendment right, all of them rights were ratified into law, and I think the first and second are probably the most important ones for most people. It was the 18th century. Okay, the 1790s. Muzzle-loading firearms were the norm. Flintlock muzzle-loading firearms were the norm. All right? I don't know how many of you have ever fired a muzzle loader, let alone a flintlock. I've fired muzzle loaders, but they were always cap and ball. I've never done a flintlock myself. Um, they're a little bit finicky and are far more prone to being affected by the weather than is a cap and ball. Um, but that was the technology at the time. It was even hard to find something that would be considered a revolver. Though the technology did exist, it was a manual type revolver where you were literally moving one chamber or to the next, and it wasn't fast, and it wasn't, pull the trigger and fire around, or pull a hammer back and fire around. It was most definitely something that most troops never saw. They had a single shot muzzle loading firearm that was not fast to do. A really good soldier might get 3 rounds off in a minute. Okay, that's a lot. It's not easy to do. It's not easy to load one, particularly under duress. Aim it, fire it, and have any chance of hitting anything, and then loading it and firing it again. They were not imagining that someday someone would have the ability to pull a trigger and spray bullets like a fire hose. They didn't even have fire hoses back then. So, yeah, don't let people bullshit you. Don't let people convince you that the AR-15 is something that every American should own. It's a weapon of war. The guy that designed it as a weapon of war. His family has come out and said, hey, by the way, our father that designed the AR-15 designed it as a weapon of war. Don't let the ammo-sexuals bullshit you. It should never have fallen into civilian hands, and it shouldn't remain there.